Welcome in, everybody. First and 10 podcast. It's Adam Hill, Ed Graney. Vinny Bunson, you're on vacation. He'll be back next week. But this is the time of the year where it's kind of, we talk about the NFL being a 365-day-a-year, 52-week-a-year type of thing. It actually is not. It's like a 48-week-a-year type of thing. This is the actual only downtime in the NFL. But that doesn't mean nothing's going on. There is still a lot going on. The Raiders player is going to be on the field this week. Just a different type of field. We'll get into that. There's a lot going on with the NFLPA. I want to touch on that. And some very interesting comments from a division rival. We'll talk about all that today on the First and 10 podcast, which, like all Vegas Nation podcasts, is brought to you by Station Casinos, STN Sports, and powered by the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Well, Ed, I think we're going to start there. Very controversial comments this week by Patrick Mahomes. It really wasn't, but it turned into it. And I think that there is a couple ways to look at this. If you haven't heard it, Patrick Mahomes was doing some interviews this week, one in particular with Kay Adams, and he kind of just said very offhandedly, wasn't really trying to make news or anything. He just said he's really continued to develop his relationship with Tom Brady.
The minority owner?
Well, that is why it's important. But, I mean, he just said, hey, look, me and Tom Brady have developed a great relationship. We've talked a lot this offseason. He's given me a lot of advice. And he was pressed on kind of what advice. He said, hey, I'm going to keep that, between us. Right. But he said the biggest one is, hey, just remain yourself. Be yourself. Work hard. Those things, very generic.
Yes.
On the surface, not a big deal.
Nothing.
Why did it become a big deal? Because, as you just mentioned, Tom Brady is not just considered the greatest quarterback of all time. He is now part of the Raiders organization, the arch rivals
of the Chiefs.
Of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's interesting. Look, do I think it's a massive deal? Well, I'll start with you. Do you think it's a big deal?
No, I don't think it's a big deal. I read your story. You did a great job on that in the Review Journal, but I could see why Raider fans would interpret it as a big deal because, like what you just said, this is the biggest rival. I don't know how much of a rival it is for the Chiefs because they've been so much better than the Raiders, but Mahomes, obviously, not Raider fans, not fans of Mahomes for obvious reasons. But just on the outside looking in from what you and I do for a living, I didn't think it was that major of an impact or that major of a deal. Yeah,
and I'll compare it a little bit. I think it is different, and I'll explain why. But I'll compare it a little bit to we were out at the SAC Summit last week, right? It's Max Crosby and a bunch of other star pass rushers comparing notes on how they do their job.
Right.
And look, they're not holding anything back. I was out there on the field with them. I'm listening to their instructions and their the collaborations that they're having, and they're really sharing their secrets of how to be a pass rusher. And in the end, you could say, well, aren't those guys just going to use that against your quarterback?
Right, exactly.
They are. That is what's happening, but there is this brotherhood between all the pass rushers, which also started with tight end university.
Tight ends.
Brock Bowers was at.
Right.
All the star tight ends are there.
Kelsey,
Kittle, Bowers.
Right.
Everybody's there. And you're like, well, they're also sharing plans. They're collaborating. They're, discussing,
how they
giving
play.
Advice to each other, all those things. And in the end, they're going to use that against some
the
of the same
teams.
Kelsey and Bowers are going to use that
against each other.
So these things happen. And also we know that, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes have this relationship dating back. They played 6 games. Tom Brady actually, I was looking back at some of the old stories that I kind of remembered but needed to get refreshers on. Tom Brady actually went to the locker room of the Chiefs after they beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. He got security to escort him down there. He pulled Mahomes aside and he was like,
work hard.
Well, I think what he said at the time is, you're the guy.
Okay.
You are the guy. You're going to take the mantle. Just continue doing what you're doing, and kind of give him that advice of hey, I beat you today, but might not happen very much in the future. It's kind of your thing. So they've had this relationship dating back, and that's fine. Where it becomes a thing now is now you are part of a team, and I understand that he's still a broadcaster. He's still an announcer, and he's a guy that's going to talk to players all around the league, and he's not going to just end his relationships with guys that he's had relationships with. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't. I think it just is what it is. They talk.
They've had a relationship
together. 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Right.
They've been friends. But I would think that a couple things. One, I would think that Brady might tell him if Patrick Mahomes calls him, hey, man, not anymore.
Oh, you think so?
I would think that you would
because
say
it became a big deal?
Or, no, I'm saying you would think he'd either say, hey, we don't do this anymore. Or, I think probably more likely, he would say, hey, obviously don't talk about this.
I think more likely it's that. I don't think he would cut him off. I don't think he'd cut the guy off.
I don't think he would just stop being friends with him.
No, I don't think so.
Hey, I think there would be more of that discussion of, hey,
especially from the reaction of it.
Don't go on Kay Adams and say we're talking.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what he's going to say. And,
yeah.
And I don't think Mahomes was trying to cause trouble or.
I don't think he even realized it was going to be a big deal. He just was talking.
Don't think he ever thought about it.
No.
Don't think he even considered it.
No.
Just it wasn't like a troll. Of, hey, I'm going to really rile up Raiders fans by saying Tom Brady's talking to me. I literally think he was just having a conversation, threw it out there,
right.
and it became a thing.
I agree with you. I don't think. One, I'll go back to my original point. I don't think it was a big deal. And I can't believe, with all that Patrick Mahomes has going on in his life, that when he says this, in the back of his mind, it's premeditated. It's like, let me say this and bug people.
Right.
Like, I don't think that happened. I think he just said it that Tom and I talk.
Yeah. And so I think it's one of those things that just gets magnified. I don't think it's wrong of Raiders, even though I don't think it's a big deal, I don't think it's wrong of Raiders fans to be like, what the heck?
Right,
what are you doing?
Right.
I think that's totally valid. I think it's a totally legitimate issue for people to have, especially
fans of the Raiders.
And especially because we already know there is that, I don't think mistrust is the right word. There's that skepticism of like, hey, man, this is a guy that terrorized the organization, that had one of the biggest moments ever in the league.
League history against them.
I think that for that reason, I think that there is a little bit on Raiders fans of, hey, this just started, and he's already –
I think they'd be more. I actually think they'd be more upset with Brady.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think they're more upset with him than Mahomes, who just, like we said,
and like I said,
said this.
I don't think upset's the right word. I think they're skeptical, and this will give them more reason to be skeptical of like what is Tom Brady's allegiance to the Raiders?
To the Raiders as the minority owner.
All those things, or is it just a business opportunity for him? Of like, hey, like I'm going to make money off of this, but I'm still a broadcaster. I'm still talking to
Mahomes
the
rivals,
and the other teams. And I don't think that's the case with him, but I think that does add perception is reality in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And I think that does add skepticism to the fan base. And so that's where I think it's at. I think you should calm down if you're a Raiders fan. I think you should be like, all right, look, it's kind of a thing.
It just happened.
But I don't think it's invalid. I don't think you're crazy for being upset about it or being, fired up about it.
No, not as a fan of the team. Not as a fan, and how much they despise the Chiefs and Mahomes.
Yeah, for sure. And so we will continue to monitor this relationship. I'm sure it'll be brought up again when they play each other. I think it's in late October, the first meeting. I'm sure it'll be brought up again. They'll be, hey, how much are you talking to him? Are you talking to him this week?
Right.
Is he calling you for advice this week?
There'll be all those questions.
All those things will come out.
And people will ask Mahomes this.
For sure. Well, speaking of players collaborating, I don't want to go too deep into this. We try to talk specifically Raiders, but it is a league-wide thing right now. A lot of news involving the NFLPA. And some news just broke here as we are sitting here on Wednesday. It's Wednesday afternoon, right?
Wednesday afternoon.
Here on Wednesday afternoon, news just broke, kind of backing up a massive report last week by Pablo Torre, who, while you're listening to our podcast and others, like, he's on a run right now. He has done some unbelievable work. I know some people kind of joke around about what he did with Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson and that stuff, but as far as journalistic podcast goes, he's been crushing it lately. And he did this kind of deep dive on this collusion report between the NFL and the NFLPA and the odd circumstances why it didn't get out, even though there were some very, very damning things against the NFL in this collusion report. A lot of people met it with, not a big deal. It's really nothing. Today, some reporting from ESPN backed up like, oh, it's a big deal. It is a big deal. And there is issues going on within the NFLPA that has blocked progress that they're trying to make in terms of getting guaranteed contracts. I wrote, and I tweeted out my column again today from Sunday and said, I wish I would have followed my really, really strong feelings on this. I kind of backed off of it a little bit just because we didn't have all the full details and we're still trying to sort through some things. But I thought that it was a really, really big red flag against the union. And I kind of said that, but I didn't go as hard as I really believed, maybe because I just didn't have the evidence to back it up, and now we kind of have some more evidence. So this is a story to watch. That's the reason I want to talk about this for in terms of Raiders fans. Like, yeah, you might not care about labor issues. I will tell you this: there are players in the locker room that don't care about labor issues.
I totally agree with that.
25% of players did not vote.
They're just worried about performing themselves and keeping a job.
Yeah, and at issue here is guaranteed contracts, and I will tell you right now, in the interest of people that are kind of skimming the surface of these things, I have talked to players in the locker room for the Raiders who are interested in labor issues and are against fully guaranteed contracts, which is stunning.
Well, let me ask you this: why?
A couple of reasons. One, they believe that it will lead to a lot of older players just being cast aside, right? So if you can sign an older player and not have a guaranteed contract, and then if he works out, he makes the team great, cast them off, we're good. But if you have to guarantee that contract, and you have to guarantee every contract, first of all, you're not going to sign guys to multi-year deals that are superstars are going to get them.
They're going to get their money no matter what.
Like a fringe kind of guy who let's give him a contract. Let's bring him in, see if he can play, see what he's going to do for us, and if it doesn't work out, we can cut him. If you have a guaranteed contract system, you're probably not going to bring in that guy. You're going to bring in a young guy. No,
you're going to bring in a younger guy.
And you're going to sign him to a 1-year deal instead of signing a veteran to a 2 or 3 year deal.
2 or 3 year deal guaranteed.
And so some of the other older guys are looking at that and saying, hey, I don't like that. And I don't like that for my fellow players, and I don't like that for the veterans. Like, that's not good. I'd like to have them have some of that flexibility so they can potentially earn. And they also said, on the other side, like they feel like it's just going to not be great for the situation between the owners and the players. I disagree. I've always believed in fully guaranteed contracts. It basically happens in the other sports. And for those that if you really want to do a deep dive on this, at the time of Deshaun Watson's guaranteed contract, deal, which is what set this all off, J.C. Treader, the head of the union, said, these are things that never get done in collective bargaining agreements. This is a precedent that gets set. It's happened in every sport. It happened in baseball, happened in basketball, where guys got guaranteed contracts, and then the next 3, 4, 5 guys that signed all got guaranteed contracts, and that became a thing.
But that didn't happen here.
It's not like it happened in the CBA. It didn't happen here because of what's detailed in this report. The league basically said, we cannot let this happen. Right. They made it very clear to each other that it was bad for business if you continue to guarantee contracts. And those 3 more quarterback contracts that happened that offseason.
Dak?
No, that offseason in particular was Russell Wilson, who wanted a fully guaranteed contract and looked like he was going to get one and didn't. Now, obviously, this becomes very ironic in a way because Deshaun Watson's contract didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
Russell Wilson's contract didn't work out. If it was fully guaranteed, it would have been really, really bad for the Broncos. So the league can say, hey, see, look. But also the Kyler Murray contract, which was not fully guaranteed, and actually the guarantees were fairly low. He's been pretty good. And then the Lamar Jackson contract, which is a big one, although I do think there's caveats to that. I don't think the league wanted to set the market for the Ravens. I think that's why that didn't happen. But if you look at these 3 contracts, then the owners then got together and were like, hey, good job on that, man. Like, why would one owner tell another good job keeping
your guy guarantees low?
Because unless it helped them for their business.
Exactly.
You would want them to sign a bad deal. Because it's bad for their team.
It's bad for their you want them to be as bad as possible.
But I think more importantly than this, for you guys as people that follow the NFL, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, who cares? I don't care about this stuff. I just want to watch football on Sunday.
A lot of people read a headline with labor agreement in it and labor strife, and they don't even click on it.
The more important issue here is there is clearly, and if you really, really want to look into this, there's plenty of things to do, including read my column, but read a lot of other people's stuff that is really, really good on this. There is clearly problems at the NFLPA, which could potentially be bad for fans. If things don't work out, like if the players kind of get bowled over in a lot of things, and things don't work out, and hey, maybe some fans are like, hey, good, I don't care about the player. I just care about seeing football.
They just want to see it and win games.
There are some things that the NFLPA really needs to get together in order to, I think, make the game better, make it better for players, make it better for that thing. So again, we won't go too deep into this. I think what I'm saying is there's a lot out there. I think consume it. We're going to write a lot more about it. If you want to pay attention to it, consume it and check it out. We are going to step aside for a second, but I'm going to tell you, you're not going to believe this.
I usually don't believe most of what you tell me.
Somebody made a bet that could pay them $2.5 million, and if they win, it was a stupid bet.
And it's not you.
It's not me. We'll talk about it.
This one's for the Vegas locals and Vegas locals only. STN Sports is the sports betting experience built for you. From the app to the 19 convenient locations across the valley to sign up, bet, and watch your favorite games. And with a massive betting menu and daily odds boost, there are tons of ways to get in the action. Sign up today.
We'll get into why this was
a bad bet.
A bad bet. And again, I understand that a lot of people, they just see numbers. They don't care about value and things like that. I talk about value all the time, and I know we do deep dives into that maybe go a little too deep at times. But a bettor placed a $25,000 bet at 100 to 1 on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl.
All right.
Now, I tweeted yesterday that this was a dumb bet, even if it wins. And there were some people that came back at me like, oh, because you think the Raiders are terrible, you don't think they're good,
right?
all
Exactly.
those things, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not why. The reason it's a dumb bet, because the Raiders are now 125 to 1. Why?
Because of this man.
So it's all it got worse.
Right.
So like you could have just waited. You would think that a $25,000 bet would make the odds all over the market go down, like to 80 to 1, 70 to 1, something like that. But no, nobody else is betting on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl. You could have just waited, got a better price at 125 to 1. So even if you win, you cost yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars in this case.
I just want to know who this person is.
Well,
I just want to know.
Here's the thing, and to get into it a little deeper, if you're
if
you're a better, I don't know who it is, but I'll say that I don't think that they're actually betting for the Raiders to win the Super Bowl. So a lot of times when you're making a bet like this, you're making a future bet. What you're doing is, and we're gonna hear from Chuck Esposito in a second about some other things. So maybe we'll talk to him about this in the future. Right. But a lot of times what these bettors are doing is you don't believe the Raiders are going to win the Super Bowl when you make the bet. What you believe is they have a chance to make the playoffs.
Right.
And then you have $2.5 million to work with betting against them in the playoffs.
Okay.
Right. So you're basically setting yourself up to hedge back.
Right.
And say, all right, so now in the first game of the playoffs, I think they're going to lose. So I'm going to bet $200,000 against them. My initial investment is only $25,000.
Right.
I'm going to bet $200,000 against them in the first game. And I'm doing the math off the top of my head. I don't think that'd be the right number. I think it'd probably be closer to like 140, 150. And then if they win that, then you're betting 300, 350, 400 against them in the next game. And then you have all that money to work with.
To play with.
So that's essentially what you're doing here. Now the Raiders are plus 310 or so to make the playoffs. So you could have just bet $25,000 at plus 3 to 1.
To make the playoffs.
Plus 3 to 1, so you're making $75,000. But in this case, I think you're setting yourself up to make more if they make the playoffs and you're hedging back against it. So I think that's what they're doing. But I'm not saying it's a dumb bet because the Raiders can't win the Super Bowl. I mean, they're unlikely to. But I think it's a dumb bet because you already missed out on a great number. You missed out on 125 to 1 instead of 100 to 1. So that's why.
All right.
Would you still take the $2.5 million? Probably.
Yeah, I think you'd still take
Probably.
it. Yeah.
I think so. But again, I don't think that's what they're trying to do. There is other things going on in the betting world. We're going to hear from Chuck Esposito, race and sportsbook director at Station Casinos STN Sports. Talk to Heidi Fang about a lot going on in the betting world. And right now, there's not a whole lot of football.
Right.
But there is some baseball. Home Run Derby coming up. All-Star game.
All-Star game.
A lot of betting going on there. We'll hear about that.
So if you haven't had a chance to get the app yet, again, we still have the $50 no-worry wager available. What a great time to get in the summer. Get yourself familiar with the app. The auto racing, horse racing, the golf,
women's softball,
the MMA. Whatever you're interested in, check out the STN Sports app.
Joining us now on the First and 10 podcast for Vegas Nation is Station Casinos Race and Sportsbook Director Chuck Esposito in for his weekly segment. As we've been telling you all this month, it's been a little bit of a dry spell for football, but not to worry. It is ramping back up. Of course, the Hall of Fame game is coming up soon, Chuck. We're going to get into that as well as some of the things happening with the MLB All-Star break and WNBA, any other numbers that we can imagine that are happening with other sports, but we will get into a little football for you. But first of all, Chuck, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing well, Heidi. It's a little hot outside, but as we've always talked about, there's a lot of cool features on the app. So you kind of touched on some of the sports that are coming up, and football's not that far away, about 3 weeks away from the Hall of Fame game, which will be fun. And then we kind of dive into it after that. So a lot of good stuff on the board right now for pro football, and we'll see how it all unfolds.
And, of course, I've seen that you've got some Summer League odds up. Dallas Mavericks, although they have Cooper Flagg, and we're expecting that big game on Thursday night to be Bronny James, possibly Cooper Flagg, playing against each other here at the NBA Summer League, taking place July 10th through July 20th in Las Vegas, Thomas & Mack and Cox Pavilion. You do have some numbers up, though, but those Mavericks are still a long shot to win that title.
They are, but I think they're a much better team. Most teams that draft number one are really behind the eight ball, where I think it's a Maverick team that has a lot of other star power. The fact that they had a less than 2% chance to win the draft lottery and they won it, I think they're a much better team. They're getting some play on our future book in the Western Conference, as the Atlanta Hawks are in our future book in the Eastern Conference. So two teams that definitely possess some value. And it's not just Summer League. We've got the MLB All-Star game coming up next week, and the home run hitting contest is always a fun wagering event that's got bigger and bigger every year. You've got the WNBA All-Star game coming up, Wimbledon winding down. So although it's kind of a little bit of a slowdown time, there's always plenty of sports going on. And as we gear up for the King, of course, with football starting next month.
Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit on MLB odds because I've been looking at that, home run contest. That's always fun. And then you look at some of the props that are around for some of the big hitters like Aaron Judge, obviously Shohei Ohtani, Cole Raleigh's in there.
Raleigh, yep.
Yeah, what do you think the odds look like right now for who can win that home run battle?
Well, I know Buxton's going to be in it as well. They're still kind of finalizing a couple of names there. But, I mean, you look at the season that Cal Raleigh's having so far and Aaron Judge. I mean, it's going to be a fun battle, I think, between those two guys, Ohtani. As I mentioned earlier, the home run hitting contest becomes a bigger and bigger wagering interest for our guests that they love betting on it. So next Monday, that'll be one of the highlights on the board for sure.
I don't even need the All-Star game. I just need the home run derby,
right,
just to be honest.
Very true, right?
Just throw the derby at me and put it on like 3 consecutive days. I don't know how you would do it, like tournament style.
Right.
I don't know. Would have to figure that one out as far as the layout goes. But I'm going to suggest it to the Major League Baseball.
I like it. I like it a lot, Revolving stadiums, right? Not only in Atlanta with the heat there, the ball could be jumping out. I mean, especially if you put maybe in Colorado, it could be fun.
Need a hitter's park. Hitter's park for sure. At top of all of that, like we said, lots of other sports going on. You mentioned some of the things coming up that stations had as of last week, I believe. We were talking about the contest coming up for football that people can get in on. It's like a survivor contest of sorts. I mean, what can you tell us about that and when fans can start signing up for it in, I believe, August?
Yeah, we're targeting August 1st for both our pro football and college football last man standing contests. They're fun contests. I mean, you win and you move on against the Station Casinos contest line or the STN line. You lose, unfortunately, you go home. But it's $25 entry fee for 1 entry. For 4 entries for $100, you get a bonus 5th entry. And last man standing really is our signature contest. They're a lot of fun. Guests, are always kind of talking about it. And, I've seen guests pacing out there. Who should I pick? Is it a better strategy to bet early in the week or late in the week? But we should start taking, again, applications around August 1, and we'll make sure and send some notifications out there so our guests know it.
I'm always a late in the week kind of girl because I like to see how the doubtfuls and the questionables play out for the team, especially if it's a key player, I could tell you that Jamison Williams broke my heart with with the Lions a few times last week because he'd have those big bombs and then nothing, and then big bombs and then nothing, and you'd think like, okay, this is going to start panning out. Then it just didn't at certain times, but I took the Lions on the wrong days. Anyway, when we get into the football, NFL, Hall of Fame game coming up, as of right now, I was looking at the over-under on the app, 32.5 in that game. When do you think the spreads might be set for that, or will it just be based solely on money line and total?
No, spread's up right now. It's pick in 32.5. As you talked about, the total's really low. I mean, I'm going to say yay sportsbooks because it's fun to start talking about football, and we'll be diving more and more into that in the coming weeks and through the rest of this month and August. But historically, there's not a lot of scoring in the Hall of Fame game. You're going to see some young players play, but very limited. I don't expect any of the Lions' key players to play in this game, but it is an opportunity to showcase some of your young talent. And more so than anything else, it's football. Football is king. In many cases, a football game like this will dominate, handle, even against 2 baseball teams that are playing in a pennant stretch because it's football. It's the first game. It's the Hall of Fame game. So should be fun between these 2 teams. Lions, who are definitely one of the Super Bowl favorites, and the Chargers, who I think are definitely a playoff team and could possibly unseat the Chiefs as the best team in the AFC West.
Ooh, those are some bold words right there. And, of course, AFC
I said possibly.
Of course, AFC West also home of the Raiders, so we'll see how that pans out for them under Pete Carroll. Like you said, New Year's for different teams, and I don't know. I think the Chiefs are going to need a lot of healthy guys that start clicking on the field in terms of wide receivers for that offense to kind of shake out to where I think people have been used to seeing it. But I know Raiders fans will be happy if it doesn't. So
yeah, it's just tough. I think when you're the Chiefs, it's tough to repeat and win it every year. I mean, they're very good with that combination of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But I do think both the Chargers and Broncos have closed that gap or narrowed that gap somewhat. And curious to see how the Raiders perform. I think with having Pete Carroll there and drafting of Genty and some young talent there, bringing in Geno Smith. Really curious to see what steps they take to kind of gain some ground in the AFC West as well.
There you have it from Chuck Esposito, recent sportsbook director for Station Casinos, and he'll be with us again next week when things start getting a little, like you said, it keeps heating up, Chuck, keeps heating up. We're waiting for it. Everyone is just inching closer. I think I have a dynasty draft at the end of this month for fantasy football and all of that. So, I mean, as soon as the drafts start ramping up for me, that's when I know it's time to lock in.
I've started doing my homework as well. So, yeah, we'll have to compare notes. That's for sure.
Okay. I got a killer team. I got to tell you, I'm really pleased with my dynasty draft. I found a diamond in the rough every year. Last year, one of my IDPs was Zach Bond. Bam. Anyway, so
I like that. I like that a lot.
But, we could stay here all day talking football, fantasy. But in the meantime, you guys need to go check it out on the app, the STN Sports app. You can download that today, as well as check it out any of the locations that are around town and get into all the action that we're talking about here. So, once again, for Chuck Esposito, I'm Heidi Fang. Now back to Ed and Adam.
Great stuff from Heidi and Chuck there, as always.
Usual.
Yeah, for sure. Getting us up to date what's going on in the betting world. Well, we are trying to keep you up to date on what's going on with the Raiders. Coming up, training camp July 23rd, first practice, and then we start counting down till the first game of the year. We're getting you ready by breaking down in the Review Journal. If you go check that out, Vegas Nation, reviewjournal.com. Position by position, myself and Vinny Bonsignore are kind of breaking it down by each position group, what to watch for, who might get cut, who might not make the team, who's going to stand out, who could be a long shot to make the roster, those sorts of things. Is there a position group as we start this coming up this weekend? So as you're listening to this, probably have the first one out there on the quarterback room. But is there a position group that you are looking forward to kind of seeing how it plays out and how it could affect the season?
Yeah, and it's the offensive line.
Okay.
I'm fascinated to see how the offensive line plays. I don't think it was a good offensive line last year. You've got guys now coming into their second year. You've got some veterans on the outside of the line. And, obviously Jackson Powers-Johnson is a second year. He's going to be the center. Because I think it all works into Geno Smith, Ashton Genty, how much Brock Bowers can be. Can he repeat the year? That would take a lot, but can he even be better? Because that offensive line has to be good. And I'm more fascinated because of that, because of Genty. Because I really want to see how good Genty can be, and Genty's going to rely on those guys up front to be good. So I really want to see how good that offensive line is to make Geno Smith clean most snaps and to make Ashton Genty have the year that a lot of people think he can have.
Yeah, it's not really going out on a limb saying, Geno Smith has been much, much better when he had a good offensive line.
Right?
So they obviously need to perform up there. And when you draft an Ashton Genty, we've talked a lot about the value of top picks in the first round being running backs. When you draft an Ashton Genty, you're basically saying our offensive line is a finished product. Like, we're ready on the offensive line.
I know.
And so they believe in him. Like, that's the pick you make. You believe in those guys. So I think that they believe that they can be better. I think one of the reasons they believe they can be better is certainly Jackson Powers-Johnson playing center and what that does to the rest of the unit, but also because I think they feel Chip Kelly and his offense can put the offensive line in a better position to succeed. And so I think all of those things come together, and I think that the team is showing that they believe in that group. And there's a lot of, I don't know if pressure is the right word, because there's not that great of expectations necessarily all around the league for what this team's going to do, but the offensive line is going to be the group because everybody knows Ashton Genty can play. Everybody knows Geno Smith, when he's protected, is a pretty good quarterback. They've got Pascal, they've got Brock Bowers, they've got Jacoby Myers. They've got some young receivers. Like, they've got all these pieces in place. If the offensive, I'll tell you this right now, no matter whose fault it is, if the offense doesn't succeed, the offensive line is going to be the group that takes the heat. So,
there's no question about that.
So I think that is a good choice by you.
Let me ask you this. How everyone talks about Geno, Ashton Genty. Put in perspective the importance of Chip Kelly.
I mean, it's massive.
It's massive, right?
They paid him a lot of money.
Right.
And they went out and they took him away from a national championship contender, as much as it pains me to say that as a Michigan fan.
Right.
Took him away from a national championship contending team. He took that chance to come to the NFL. He got a lot of money to do it, and the Raiders are putting all their offense in his hands. I mean, Pete Carroll's a defensive guy. They bring back their defensive coordinator. Like, there's a lot of things in place on the other side.
Yeah.
It's Chip Kelly's offense. And it's Chip Kelly and Geno Smith. And
invaluable to them if he's good.
Absolutely, for sure. And we've seen what he can do as a coordinator. I mean, as a play caller, as an offensive mind, when he's not the head coach,
That's the key.
Very, very good.
Wasn't great as a head coach, and there's so many guys around the league like that. When you get them in coordinators and all they have to do is focus on play calling, they can be terrific.
And he's been very good. And we see a lot of what he can do moving around the offensive line, getting them out in motion. I think this line is built to kind of play the way Chip Kelly wants them to play. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of positives that can come out of the offensive line, but there also is that chance that it doesn't work out. And then all these other investments that you made have a hard time
performing exactly
because of where they are. That's a good choice by you. That's coming up next week. I think my most intriguing group maybe going into the season is the defensive backfield. Obviously, Ja'Cory Bennett, I think when he's been healthy, he's shown really, really good signs. They've got some other young pieces in place there that are going to have to make a huge step up. They brought in some veteran free agents as well that I think are going to be counted on, but they're replacing a lot. A lot of production in the defensive backfield that is gone. And so it's a lot of guys, same defensive system kind of with Patrick Graham, but it's also Pete Carroll bringing in his ideas too. They invested in the draft. They invested in free agency. They brought in a bunch of guys, but there's a lot of that is communication. A lot of it's working together. A lot of that is understanding of each other. And when you bring in all these new pieces, it's going to be tough to get to that level. They should be helped by a defensive line that should get a lot of pressure, but to me, that's the one I'm looking forward to the most of seeing how they kind of develop, not only through training camp, but also during the season.
Well, let me ask you this, because I was talking to someone the other day, and he brought up a good point, I thought, in terms of especially corner right now, maybe safety not as much, but especially corner. And I'm not going to sit here and say I know all the guys that are still out there, but would you wait until you get into camp and to pads to see what you really have, or would you still trying to be upgrading at this point?
Well, they're going to probably try to find what they can, because that's, I think we mentioned this almost every week on the podcast, that's what Pete Carroll does, especially in his first year. He had almost 300 transactions in Seattle his first season. He likes to look. To tinker. He likes to tinker. He's like I'm not comparing him to fantasy football. It's a very different world, but he's like a fantasy football guy who, like, all the way up to Sunday morning, you've had all week to think about your roster. You're like, nah, I'm going to put this guy in and put this guy in.
Exactly.
And he wants competition. So he's like, bring this guy. All right, move this. He's tinkering with the roster all the time. That's what he does. And there's a method behind it. It's not just for the sake of doing it. He does it because he wants always competition. So the guy at the bottom of the roster is out. A new guy comes in. He's going to compete with everybody. That's what he's trying to do in terms of how he wants to run a team. So I expect them to make a lot of moves, a lot of transactions. However, my thought, and we've kind of delved into this a lot here the last couple of weeks, is I would much prefer to just go with a younger guy, and it's sink or swim. Because I don't believe that they are a Super Bowl contender right now,
right?
And I don't think that they believe they are necessarily either.
I don't think so either.
I would rather, if you're looking at, this veteran, I'm not going to say any names, so I'm not going to suggest that this guy's not working out or whoever. This veteran's not working out. We brought him in. Don't like what he's doing. Instead of bringing in another veteran who probably is not going to be with you for
let the young guys swim.
I would say, hey, we've got a bunch of rookies, a bunch of second-year guys.
Right.
They're going to be guys on the practice squad. Let them go in. If they perform, great. If they don't, then they're out and another guy comes in. I would rather use this year in a lot of positions, because there's so many talented young players that I believe this is a Super Bowl contender in 2 or 3 years. That let's see who from this group that's young is going to step up and embrace that opportunity and go. And if there's a guy out there that's age 22, 23, whatever, coming off, he had an opportunity somewhere, like last year, Jonah Laulu with the Raiders.
Right.
He gets cut, 7th round pick. They bring him in. He's a good player.
Yep.
And so that's the kind of guys I would be looking for if I'm going to be bringing somebody from the outside. But for right now, I think you have enough young players. You're like, all right, this guy's turn. Let's see which young player embraces that opportunity.
Yep.
That's how I would kind of handle some of those spots. Well, guys are going to be on the field. I mentioned at the top. They're taking the field this week. Big chance for them to perform, but they're not playing football. It's the
little softball.
It's the celebrity softball game. Raiders versus Golden Knights. For those that are out of town, it's a big event every year. Always sold out. Always a good time. There has been issues in the past. Nate Hobbs. Sorry if you're listening. I don't think he'd ever played softball before. He misplayed a fly ball, hit him right in the face.
Right in the head. Right.
It was pretty nasty. And think about the timing here. This softball game happens right before training camp starts.
They report on the 22nd.
Nate Hobbs missed the start of training camp. Wasn't able to get on the field because he took that blow in the softball game. I have the roster here of Raiders that are going to be playing in the softball game this year.
This is a Brock Bowers captain team.
It's Team Bowers going up against Team Eichel from the Golden Knights. It's going to be out at the LV Ballpark, which is just a phenomenal facility, and
beautiful.
Everybody hasn't been there. So on the Raiders team, are there any of these guys that we're worried about?
Not having played softball, and maybe getting hit in the head.
Or maybe they go too hard, turning the bases. Rounding third, trying to score.
Oh,
so
don't even put that out there for Raider fans.
Team Bowers, I'm telling you right now, Brock Bowers is going to compete. He always competes.
Yes.
He's going to go hard. I think he's probably. I'm going to guess that he can catch. I think we've seen him catch footballs.
I would hope so. Yes.
I'm not that worried about him. Jack Besh, kind of the same. I think he's going to be all right.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming here. AJ Cole and Daniel Carlson, we've seen play.
They
play every year.
Participated in this.
So I think they'll be all right. In fact, I think Daniel was in the home run derby last year.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I think maybe he'll do that again. Thayer Munford, we've seen out there. He actually, I think, played some baseball at some point. He's been pretty decent. Aiden O'Connell, I'm going to assume.
He won't be swift around the bases.
He won't be, but I think he did play. He did play some because I feel like I've seen him play softball, and he was okay.
Really?
Like
last year? Where else would you have seen him play softball?
Was it 2 years ago? Or was he out there as a rookie, I think? I feel like I saw him. Maybe he didn't.
All right.
Maybe I'm wrong about this. I just assume quarterbacks have probably played some.
The quarterbacks are usually like the 3-sport guys.
So I'm going to say, oh, man. Sincere McCormick, I don't know.
Can't even tell you.
I'm not sure.
I can't even tell you about Sincere McCormick.
I don't think I've seen him play. Trey Tucker, I think, was out there last year.
Yes.
I'm worried about him trying to run too fast. He's very fast. Yes. He gets around the bases pretty quickly. That could be a concern. Jeremy Chin out there as well. Eric Stokes too. That's the Raiders team that's going to be out there. Right. I'm gonna run this by. I'm gonna tell Sincere on Saturday that he's the one I'm most worried about. I think.
If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, who has had the upper hand in this? Has it been the Raiders?
It's a good question. I
think it was.
I don't feel the final score is like the most important thing.
No, it's not.
Seems like the most important.
But we
thing
always
is the
hear
fireworks.
who wins.
It's always the fireworks. I've been at every game, and I don't remember who won any of them.
The Knights have won twice.
Okay, well.
The Knights have won twice?
Like I think there's been like 5
All
or
right,
6.
yeah, this is because Riley Smith was the captain for a long time.
He's back this year.
He's back on the team, so he's back playing. Jack Eichel is the captain. I think for the second straight year.
Not a lot of current Knights out there. Current Raiders showing out. They'll be there. But a lot of former Knights coming back. Ryan Reeves, James Neal, Logan Thompson. Interesting.
Yeah.
Will be back. But yeah, I think.
Is Aiden Hill out there?
No, I don't.
And Logan, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I think he's back home. I think he's like at the lake house or something. So for Raiders fans, if you absolutely want to see the Raiders, you haven't seen them in a while.
Or some of them.
There's going to be a bunch of players out there for this softball game. I think usually some more players just show up too, just kind of hang out out at the field. So if you need to get your fix of Raiders, this will be the way to do it.
What time?
Home run derby 7:00. All
right.
The game I think at 8, and then most importantly for a lot of people, I'm not a fireworks guy. I don't know if you are.
No.
I feel like you probably are.
No.
You've probably
no, because the bulldog doesn't.
Oohed and awed.
No, because the bulldog doesn't like.
I don't mean that. My dog hates them too. So
yeah, I can't like something that the bulldog doesn't like.
First of all, your dog hates everything.
That is true. He hates people, other than myself.
I think before you had a dog, you were probably a fireworks guy.
I have 2 kids.
Probably oohed and awed.
I have 2 kids. They enjoy fireworks.
Have you ever done ooh?
I don't know if I've oohed and awed.
I think you probably have. That seems like something you would do.
Fireworks.
I'm going to be watching if you're out there Saturday night, 9:30 fireworks out at Ballpark. Not too many fireworks on today's show. We got to do it smooth. Vinny will be back next week. Thank you guys all for listening. 1st and 10 with Vegas Nation, and always appreciate Station Casinos, STN Sports, and Vegas Nation, powered by the Las Vegas Review Journal. It's 1st and 10. Thanks, guys.